And this game is presented by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. We get into the bottom of the second inning. It will be for Chicago, Soriano, Baker, and Mather against the lefty John Lester, who should get a lot of swings and misses here tonight with his deceptive delivery. It's tough for these guys to pick up the baseball, and he's got obviously that great velocity, Lester, and a guy who's got the best winning percentage among active pitchers. Soriano's been hot in the count. 1-1 strike. There's the hitter's backdrop into center field where Ryan Sweeney is, and then back into that area that's rather new here at Wrigley Field in center. Hitter's trying to pick up the baseball, dealing with shadows and sunlight, and the count 2-1.
We were talking about that word gloaming earlier in the game. It's famous in Cub history. In 1938, on September 28, Gabby Hartnett hit a home run to extend the season, and the Chicago Cubs lost to the World Series champions that year, the New York Yankees. But it's known as the Homer and the Gloamin'. Of course, in 1938, they didn't have lights in Wrigley Field. Lights were not to appear until 50 years later.
Counts 2-2 on Soriano. To the shortstop, Aviles gets a weird hop at the end, but to his right makes the play, 1 out. Soriano, who had not homered over the first 30 games, went to a lighter bat and has hit 12 home runs since the 15th of May, and now has miraculously put himself on the list of potential all-stars for the Cubs. Is out number 1.
I think more older hitters should go to lighter bats. Sometimes it's their ego that gets in the way. They don't want to drop down, admitting that they're not as strong as they once were.
Batter is Baker. Good fastball hitter. 4 for 4 in his career against Lester. Takes a strike. Ken Rosenthal is with us from FoxSports.com. And Ken, that's a ground ball off Lester's glove. Middlebrooks can't make the play, and it's an infield hit for Jeff Baker. And I know you talked to Soriano and to Dale Swaim about that shift to a lighter bat for Alfonso.
Well, Soriano, of course, swung one of the heaviest bats in the majors, but he was thinking about going lighter when Dale Swaim suggested it one day, and Soriano said at that point he gave me the confidence to do it. What the lighter bat gives him is more time to react. He doesn't have to be as quick with his mechanics. He can just be quick with his hands.
Who's the bow tie honoring tonight?
Easter Seals, Joe.
Easter Seals. And if we could ever, sure we will, get a tighter shot. Bill Webb is qualified to do that. It's got numbers and different colors, and as Kenny gets lost to score later tonight with the wind blowing out. He's got help if he just looks down. Here's Mather, and he takes a strike. There it is, a nice look. Half the mug of Kenny Rosenthal, and now an even better shot. In high definition, Kenny, you should have shaved against the grain this morning because you were a little lackadaisical around the neck area. 0-1 the count from Lester, and Mather grounds it foul, strike 2. It's always a tricky proposition, shaving around the neck. Never felt comfortable with it. 1 on, 1 out after a ground out by Soriano. Baker with an infield base hit that was deflected by Lester. Either it went through for a hit or it was knocked down for a hit. And now the count 0-2 on Joe Mather. Struck him out on a high, hard one, and that is out number 2. First strikeout for Lester.
Excuse me, Joe. That was a cut fastball up and in, and the first noticeable cutter. But it goes, the cutter from the left-hander goes in on the right-handed batter, and he gets Mather. Good pitch there.
Now Wellington Castillo, a guy who was at AA, AAA, and now the big league. Tim Dale Swaim, the manager of the Cubs, thought that eventually this guy would be a starting catcher in the big leagues. He's got that capability, especially defensively, the way he can get rid of a baseball. 2 out, ball 1.
A very strong arm behind the plate, and something that a lot of people don't understand. He has very quick feet behind the plate. Allows him to get in position to throw And Dale thinks he's going to be a good big league hitter once he gets more experience.
He certainly hit in the minor leagues. Just got back from a rehab assignment. He lines to Aviles to end the inning. A line out. We've had some loud outs in this one.
Yeah.
A one-out hit by Baker, and the Cubs strand their first. No score. Back after this from the local Fox station. Let's take you around this great city on a Saturday night. Fox Baseball Night in America is presented by Budweiser. As we go into the third, Red Sox have Aviles to lead it off, then John Lester, the pitcher, then Podsednik, and a strike hits the outside corner from Samardzija. Samardzija ready with another, and that's too far outside. A ball and a strike. Jeff was a fifth-round pick back in '06. Got that 5-year major league deal that I talked about. He came up in 2008, but this is his first real crack at being a starter in this rotation. Had only 5 starts coming into this year. 1 out here in the third inning. Let's go to Matt for a DirecTV game break.
Joe, to the Sunshine State, dating back to last season, Tampa Bay had beaten the Marlins in 8 straight. James Shields beat them just 5 days ago, but this 2-run single by Jose Reyes gives Miami an early lead. If you call yourself a sportsman, you got to get DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV. Joe and Tim, back to you guys.
Marlins have hit the skids. They're at 500 at the start of the day, and they've lost 9 of 10 and 3 in a row. Red Sox just beat Miami 2 out of 3. Before they came here. Cubs won here yesterday 3-zip. The 0-1 is on the outside part.
Only 11 days ago, the Miami Marlins were in first place in the National League East. The bottom has fallen out.
Now it's the Nationals. The Nationals have dropped 2 in a row to the Yankees. 0-2 on Lester, and now a clunker back to Samardzija, who will flip because he has to. Yeah, could have walked it over. 2 down. I want to get into kind of the state of the union for the Chicago Cubs. It's an interesting time right now for this franchise as you look at the NL East and what was a real bunched up division. There's been a little separation. Atlanta 6 games over, 3.5 games out. Washington lost in 14 innings earlier today at home to the Yankees. Andy Pettitte with another start where he went 7 innings. Podsednik takes a strike. So you've got Theo Epstein, who was the general manager and the guy who was running the show with the Red Sox from 2003 to 2011. There's Theo on the cell phone. I'm sure that thing will be busy. Cell phone over the next couple of weeks, with Ryan Dempster the obvious one to go somewhere else if he waives his no trade situation. But there are others that can be had on this Cubs team. It's like come and get it right now, as that one is high. And while it was made obvious pretty much, Tim, in the offseason when they didn't really go after Pujols, they didn't go after Prince Fielder, they let a lot of money leave this organization and contracts, and guys like Pena and Zambrano and Aramis, Ramirez, Fukudome. Here's a little running slap at the baseball by Podsednik. The count's still 1-2. Now they're going to be picked even more clean by other GMs, and they've got a long rebuilding process now to undergo here with the Cubs.
We talked about a 5-year program. We just threw that number out. That was not Theo Epstein's. But the one other guy I think they don't get rid of is Starlin Castro, the shortstop. We talked about Samardzija, who will lead the Cubs' hope for a number of years, lead that pitching staff. And I think Starlin Castro will lead the regular players. But anybody else up for grabs?
I think it's a lot to ask of the fans around here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like how many times do you have to go through this where an organization is just stripped down? And yeah, they've got good young players. They've got this kid, Anthony Rizzo, that they love at the AAA level and is leading in home runs. He's got 22 already. Actually, 24. He had 26 last year. And they've got some other young guys like Brett Jackson, Jorge Soler, the Cuban-born player they just got. Here's a base hit up the middle. But with the exception of Rizzo, who they may see at some point this year and got up with the Padres last year for a brief while, hit a home run, but really struggled. They're being very careful with Anthony Rizzo. I mean, you're talking about 2-3 years before this team on this pace and with this approach is going to be competing in the division.
I think it's longer than that, Joe. I really do. I think it's longer than a 2 or 3 year period. We threw that word out 5 years. I think it could be more than 5 years. Do you know, I think the Cub fans, this is just my opinion, they've been some of the most forgiving fans in the world. I think it seems like fun comes first for Cub fans. The ballpark, the environment, that certainly helps things. But it is a lot to ask of the fans. See?
She's already out. 1 on, 2 out, no score, third inning. Pedroia at the plate after a base hit by Podsednik up the middle.
He's going to be running. It's a matter of when.
Looks like he's about ready to take off right now.
Well, that's a good deterrent, and Jeff Samardzija was doing that from a pitcher. Instead of throwing to first, you just hold the ball and upset the runner's timing.
One on, 2 out, and a ball down and away, corralled by Castillo, the catcher. Pedroia has been frustrated. We showed you those numbers, 188 coming into this game since the middle of May. Took a few days off with that tear in his right thumb, and now he's tried to just play his way right through it. Here comes a 1-0. Kind of a weird situation even in the dugout on the Boston side before the game, with Pedroia sitting there with Nick Punto. And there's Terry Francona, who's in town to do the game tomorrow night for ESPN.
And it's clear that Terry Francona's favorite player was Dustin Pedroia. Yeah. By far, they're very, very close friends.
Now Bobby Valentine's pulling the strings for the Red Sox, and Francona wears a headset and tie. Against his wishes, by the way, the tie fight. But they make him. Meanwhile, Valentine, who's 62, is in his 16th Major League Baseball season as a manager. And there was Tito, as everybody knows him, Terry Francona down there talking to Pedroia and Punto and having fun down in the Red Sox dugout. A check on the runner, Podsednik at first.
I'll tell you, the Red Sox over the last decade, everybody knows it. They're world champions in 2004, 2007. They climbed Everest those 2 years. And last year, they fell into a crevasse.
Here's a high fly ball foul off the bat of Pedroia, 2-2. Well, they're September, and that collapse about as bad as it can get. And as Theo Epstein put it, and this is paraphrasing, that September won't leave him.
No.
It's going to be hard for him to ever get over that. For a team that played as good as anybody, maybe better than any other team in the big leagues for 4.5 months during the season, and then that collapse in September. Runner goes on a line drive foul down the right field line, still 2-2.
In 1964, the Phillies collapsed in the National League. Of course, there was no divisional play that year, but they had a 10-game losing streak with 12 games left, and Gene Mauch called his team the best team in baseball for 150 games. But you got to play 162. And last year, you could make that statement about the Red Sox. For 5 months of the year, they were the best team in baseball, and then collapsed, and I mean collapsed, in September.
2-2 pitch is fouled back and out of play. Through yesterday, you look at last year and where they were, and this is when they started to really get into a groove. The Boston Red Sox, they had that slow start last year as well during the month of April, but then they took off. Now they're 7.5 games out at the start of the day, 8 out to be exact, with the Yankees win actually earlier this afternoon. 2 balls, 2 strikes. 1 hopper to Darwin Barney. Backs up, makes the play. The inning is over. A hit, second of the day for the Red Sox. They strand their first. Bottom of the 3rd inning. Cubs coming to bat, no score.